when Magi ended, the ending was met with a lot of mixed responses from people online. In general, people were upset by the ending. Of me, myself, I liked it. You know, that's just my opinion. I actually quite enjoyed it. It was a bit rushed, but I liked it. But in the general opinion of people online was they were dissatisfied. They thought it was rushed a lot. They thought it was, plain, maybe empty. Maybe a lot of things were left just in the air. Quite a lot of things were left in the air. In general, people were not happy with the ending. But of course, me myself, I was happy with it. And that's my opinion, of course. Everyone has one. That's why it's called an opinion, which is fine whether you don't like it or like it. Either way, the ending was a bit, I'd say, the first time I read it 3-4 years ago, weekly, it was a bit confusing for me because I did skim through it. Yes, I know, it was a horrible thing. It was stupid of me, to be honest. I don't do that anymore, of course. But back then, I skimmed through it, and what I mean by that is I skipped a few dialogue boxes when I read it. I don't know why. And, of course, because I was an idiot like that, I was left confused. Now, flash forward to, I guess, a year back from now, so not really flash forwarding, but flash forward from when I finished it and a year from today, I reread the whole thing and I thought, wow, that was actually pretty good, and I got a better understanding of the ending. Now, I still, was a bit confused by a bit of things, so I went online to find any forums, anything, a discussion thread, explaining the ending and what happened to find out a few niches that I wanted to know. All I found were forums of people saying their opinion on it, saying maybe they liked it, they didn't like it, and that's all. So I have a lot of those, and I saw no videos actually explaining the ending. Actually, a lot of things were people upset by the ending. So now here I am, I'm going to, I reread it now, and I reread it before. I actually reread it quite a lot within the span of a year, because I make, essays on these. But I want to actually make this video, which I wish was available for me to watch or find online, basically explaining the ending and what happened. Now, what I'm going to be doing is explaining the more confusing parts. So, Morgiana and Alibaba's wedding, that kind of stuff, I'm not really going to talk about that. I'm going to explain the final battle and the consequences and ramifications of that. Now, to start off with, what happened with the final fight with David. Now, Alibaba, Aladdin, Hakuryu, and Judal convinced Sinbad, this is not a good idea, rewriting the Rukh. But we find out David is kind of like the mastermind and the final villain. So what ends up happening is Aladdin actually goes to the Dark Rift and confronts David. Sinbad joins the good side. This much you guys should be aware of. Like, Sinbad became a good guy at the end, right? So what needs to happen? Well, using Solomon's wisdom, Sinbad is able to talk to everyone using Aladdin Solomon's wisdom, and he explains to everyone what the situation is. Now, Sinbad had discast the spell or the magic that had everyone under the illusion that they wanted to join the Rukh. It wasn't even an illusion, it was actually their own will. They truly wanted to rejoin with the Rukh, die along with it and rewrite everything. Now, that's the crazy part, which you see Adba explain. When the spell is gone and everyone comes to their senses, it's not like, oh, I was being mind-controlled. No, when they wanted to all die and return to the Rukh, they really wanted to die, like truly. And when that spell was gone, they felt crushed. Because, think about it, with all of their being, their fiber, their everything, they truly, wholly believed that returning to the Rukh and dying is what they wanted to do. They were they wanted it so badly. And when that when their will came back to them and they had their own thoughts, to them, it's odd because 1 second they truly thought, it wasn't a mind control, they truly thought that they wanted to die. So it was really, really soul crushing to them when they find out that the thing that they had been wanting so badly, all of a sudden they're now fighting against it. So that's why in the final battle, when it begins, they're all so distraught and kind of saddened, and they have this look of despair on their faces when they're fighting these angels for their lives, because they're everything that they had believed, they truly believed that it was a good idea to return to the Rukh. Now they're fighting against it. So that's that. The spell is broken, and Sinbad explains that what they all need to do is destroy the Metal Vessel dungeons, right? But the problem is they wouldn't be able to do it in time. You know, something along those lines. What Sinbad explains is that what they need to do is give all of their power. Well, Metal Vessel users, they need to give it all to Alibaba and create like kind of another god, like what Sinbad was, and they need they need Alibaba to kind of fix all of this. But of course, Alibaba disagrees. He says, we're just going to create another Sinbad problem where there's another dictator, blah blah blah. What the confusing part comes after they destroy the tower. So what ends up happening is, if they destroy all the towers, sure, everything will be saved, but the problem is, once they do this, the metal vessels will become useless. You won't be able to use it anymore. And the Magi system will vanish, which sucks, of course. The Magis don't want that, the metal vessels users don't want that. But of course, for the greater good, they have to destroy it. Now, the problem with this is, once they do that, Aladdin is able to defeat David once they do that, because Aladdin is in the Dark Rift, he's stopping David Rukh from rising. So of course, Sinbad is trying to fight back and help him, and Aladdin can't do it alone. So what ends up happening is, from Earth, they actually say Earth, Yunnan and Titus, they also help push back the Rukh. Now, I guess it's not really explained what he does. I guess he just destroys, because the ramifications of all of this is that there is no longer a sacred palace. So I guess he ends up kind of not destroying David, but like, he pushes him out. He destroys David, sends him off to somewhere else. And in the end, as you can see, he gets help from the spirits, not really spirits, but like the Rukh of his mother Sheba, his father Solomon, and Hugo. They kind of give him the final push to destroy David. Now, what happens to the world after this? First off, everyone uses extreme magic in combination, and obviously, along with what I just said before, Hugo, Solomon, Sheba helping Aladdin, kind of a mix of everything. They defeat David, and everything goes. The Sacred Palace and the Great Rift vanishes. Now, what happens because of this? First of all, like I said before, there is no longer a Magi system, and there are no longer Metal Vessel users, or Metal Vessels themselves, the users are still there, of course. Now, what happened to magic in general? Magic is still there, because we see them using the teleportation magic to move around cargo, because Alibaba becomes a merchant, so we do see them using teleportation magic. We also see when Alibaba is talking to Qasim's grave, that not only does he feel the Rukh in the earring, so that is still there, because you'd assume it would still be there, right? Yeah, I do think it's still there, because we also see when Solomon returns to wherever, I guess the afterlife, we see them in Rukh form. But the problem is, in the final chapter, once everything is done, we never see the Rukh again, but we do see kind of like it glows, the ring glows when he talks to Qasim, so Qasim is sort of there. And we also see when Alibaba is discussing magicians going to another dimension and to another world, both the worlds have a Rukh symbol on them. So I'm guessing it's not really shown, but it's still there, of course. I mean, it's life. Rukh is still there. And magic is still there. Now, the fates of everyone. It seems the countries are still there, and who rules what country is still the ruler of that country. And Alibaba becomes a merchant, of course, like he already was during the final arc. Everyone seems to have gotten really close. I mean, like, characters who didn't know each other before from all these different countries, everyone seems to have gone to know each other, because they've been trying to sort out the borders. Well, actually, before I even talk about that, I need to talk about what happened to the actual world. Now, as you saw, there was a whole change in the world itself. Oceans were where mountains used to be, as you see, and the lands have just moved. The earth is no longer as, I guess, it doesn't work as it did before. It doesn't work as it did before. It doesn't, the terrain isn't shaped as it was. The whole landscape has changed. Now, the problem with this is the borders of the countries. Now, countries are trying to set the borders of which country is where, because it is just a complete chaos of how the world is shaped. But the big powers, at least at the end that we see, they're still there. Co-Empire, Rem Empire, Balbad is still there as a country. So that doesn't change, you know, which countries are in power. I guess that's still there. We also see the finalists still retain the strength that they had, because we see children finalists picking up pillars, just massive pillars, as they work. We also see that for the most part, everyone, you know, is happy and they got the ending. Arba is kind of watching them, you know, just being Arba. She's not really evil anymore. I guess I don't actually believe she was ever evil. I think her intentions were just carried out in an evil way, but she herself was not really evil. Either way, it's, I guess, a happy ending, because we see everyone who hadn't died before, everyone who didn't die is still alive. We see every single character, including Judal. I don't know why people were complaining about that. I mean, it does really suck that we don't see what he does afterwards, but we do see Judal at the end. He kind of has a joke scene with that creature that chased him. Yunnan was playing a joke on him. But also the borders between continents vanished. So now people can come and go to the Dark Continent as they please, because we do see the finalists from the Rem Empire seeing the finalists from the Dark Continent. And we also see Yunnan and Judal flying on their wands at the very last panel. So they still have magic. They don't have limitless Rukh now, so they're definitely not as powerful as they were before. But magic still exists. And the very, very final kind of dialogue that we get, Aladdin and Alibaba got involved with people around the world, opened the gateway to a vast and yet unknown land, and set forth to a journey on new adventures. Also, one thing I'm going to say is Sinbad's, let's say, fate was left in the air. We don't know if he's like dead or alive, where he is. We have no idea, because he says he'll come back somehow, but he just vanishes, I guess, to wherever David went. So we don't really know what happened with Sinbad, and we see a journal at the end, which is kind of like the story of Magi, just ending with a flute there. So I guess that's that. All the characters in the series kind of mingled and got to know each other, which I think is great. Everyone who didn't die before the final arc, besides Sinbad of course, his fate is left in the air, is alive, happy. The borders between countries still exist. Magic definitely still exists. The Raw, it's not really as clear as magic. I think it definitely still exists, but it's not as clear as, you know, you clearly see people using magic several times in the end. So magic is still around. But the Raw, that we don't really know. The Sacred Palace and the Great Rift are gone. Destiny is in the hands of the people now, and now people can do what they want. And the world is obviously more chaotic because, you know, people with a good Raw aren't led onto that's the right pathway. Before, what the case was if you were fallen into depravity, if you were fallen, quote unquote, you would not be on the right path of life, and the people who had the pure Raw would be the ones who kind of like had the best chances in life, or like destiny favored them. But now that that's gone, anyone can rule, so it opens the door to more chaos and evil, or like the evil side of humanity. But of course, that's an option, you know, it's a possibility, but that's not what we see at the end. It could happen in the future, but that's not what we see now. Destiny no longer exists to control that sort of thing. And the Magi system is gone. There are no more Magi. The Magi that were around can still use magic, but they don't have that broken ability, like the broken abilities that they had, such as having limitless Raw. And because we also do see Arba using magic to fly at the end on the carpet. And there are no longer metal vessel users, but of course there are still strong people like magicians, the finalists. So and of course Alibaba, he definitely still has that ability where he can see the future, kind of with his eyes in battle, or like the future trajectory, I would say. So clearly, yeah, strength still exists. People are still strong. Aladdin is definitely even without being a Magi, he was very powerful. He was a very powerful magician. Morgan is a finalist. she's still very strong, and Alibaba, of course, has that future sight ability. And Sinbad, I guess his fate is the only one left in the air. They go on a new adventure to unknown lands, which I'm guessing is other worlds, because it said open the gateway to a vast and yet unknown land. So I'm guessing they did go to other worlds eventually, but I guess we just never got to see it. But that is the ending explained. So just a quick rundown. I know I just ran it down here, but just a really, really quick and brief summary. The borders between worlds were to start off with, the world was reshaped, so countries are now remaking borders, but the countries that were around before still exist. XE, for example, Balabad, the Rem Empire, Ko Empire, all of them still exist. Metal Vessel users are still alive, as well as Magi users, but the Magi system is gone, so the Magi do not have the limitless draw that they once had. And the Metal Vessel users can't use Metal Vessels because they don't exist anymore. There are no more Dijin. So, magic still exists. People are still able to use magic. As you can clearly see, Yunnan, Judal using magic to fly around. Magic is used to teleport cargo, and we also see Arba flying on a magic carpet. And we also see Alibaba talking about the greatest magicians finding a way to go to another dimension. So, magic is definitely still a thing. The Raw, I think, is still a thing. I mean, there's no evidence of it, but it obviously is. It's a part of the world. It definitely still exists. Because we do see Alibaba talking to Qasim, and this kind of response with his earring. So, Raw, it exists. I definitely think it exists, but it's never really shown again, beside that one panel about showing the two worlds connect. Finalists, they are... Well, actually, to get to that point, I need to talk about the continents, that you can now travel between continents. That's gone, the barrier that was there before, so the finalists can meet with everyone. You know, both the Rem Empires can go to the normal land, and the finalists from the Dark Continent can come to the normal land now. As well as the Sacred Palace and the Great Rift are gone. Destiny is gone, so that leaves the door open for more chaos, but we clearly see that because Destiny's gone, they kind of go on the right path. Everyone does. It's a very happy ending. Everyone becomes happy. That's the ending. And if there's anything else that's still confusing, I'll try to explain it. Just let me know. But I don't know why I found this so confusing before. I really don't. Once I actually gave it a thorough read through, I was like, okay, this is very simple. But I'm just making this so, if someone wants just a rundown version, this is 18 minutes. I don't know how it got this long, but if someone wants a rundown version, boom, there you go. The ending is very happy, and magic is still around, which is cool.